Stone walls swallowed the torchlight. A horn shape moved where no sun had ever reached. A boy froze between two identical corridors. Behind him, the door was already gone. Ahead, something breathed like an angry bull. Above that darkness, Crete glittered like a crown. Below it, the labyrinth waited like a buried storm. At its center lived the Minotaur. Half man, half bull, and entirely wrong. This is the legend of the Minotaur and the deadly Labyrinth of Crete. It begins with a king, a god, and one act of pride. It ends with a hero who wins too late to keep everything. And by the end, you'll see why this myth never stopped haunting the world. The king was Minos, ruler of Crete, a wealthy island kingdom whose ships and palaces made it the envy of Greece. To prove he deserved the throne, Minos prayed to Poseidon, god of the sea, for a sign no rival could deny. Poseidon sent one from the waves, a flawless white bull, bright as sea foam beneath the morning sun. The message was clear: Minos must sacrifice the bull in thanks, and the god would bless his rule. But Minos saw the animal and wanted to keep such beauty grazing in his own royal fields forever. He offered another bull instead, smaller and ordinary, hoping a god might accept the substitution and look away. The gods almost never look away, and this is where the legend quietly begins to curdle. Poseidon chose not to destroy Crete with lightning or flood. He chose a punishment that would shame the palace itself. He twisted the heart of Pasiphae, queen of Crete and wife of Minos, with a terrible unnatural desire. Pasiphae turned in desperation to Daedalus, the greatest inventor in Greece, a craftsman famous for impossible designs. Daedalus built her a hollow wooden cow, lifelike enough to deceive the sacred bull in the pasture. From that union came a child no court could celebrate and no family could easily name. Some called him Asterion, but history remembers him as the Minotaur, meaning the bull of Minos. He had a man's body, a bull's head, and a strength that terrified everyone who saw him grow. Minos looked at the creature and saw not a son, but a living monument to his own disobedience. So he summoned Daedalus again and ordered him to build a prison no captive could ever escape. Daedalus answered with the labyrinth, a maze of corridors and chambers twisted into perfect, merciless confusion underground. Its passages doubled back on themselves, its turns mocked memory. Every path seemed to promise escape, then stole it. At the center of that stone puzzle, the Minotaur was hidden from daylight and fed in secret. You'd think burying the monster would end the nightmare, but the story was only gathering force. Minos had a son named Androgeus, a gifted prince admired across Greece for his athletic skill and rising fame. When Androgeus traveled to Athens, the great mainland city, he died far from home under dark circumstances. Some traditions say jealous Athenians arranged his death, others say he was sent against a savage bull and fell. Minos blamed Athens either way, and grief turned his anger into war. Crete defeated Athens, and the peace that followed demanded something colder than treasure or tribute in silver. Every 9 years, in the best-known version, Athens must send 7 young men and 7 young women to Crete. They were marched not into service, but into the labyrinth, where the Minotaur hunted them in the dark. So the black ship sailed again and again, carrying fear across the Aegean while Athens learned to count its children differently. Then, on the third tribute, one volunteer stepped forward and changed the shape of the legend. His name was Theseus, son of Aegeus, king of Athens, and already a young hero of unusual nerve. He had cleared dangerous roads of bandits and monsters, earning a name that spread faster than his years. Theseus swore he would sail with the victims, kill the Minotaur, and end Athens' humiliation forever. Aegeus agreed, but he made one last bargain with hope before letting his son leave the shore. The ship would depart under black sails, Aegeus said, but return beneath white sails if Theseus survived. When the Athenian ship reached Crete, Minos came down to inspect the tribute like cargo brought to market. Beside him stood Ariadne, princess of Crete, daughter of Minos and Pasiphae, watching the strangers from the palace steps. Then she saw Theseus, and another danger entered the story, quieter than the Minotaur but just as powerful. In the most famous telling, Ariadne fell in love with him at once, perhaps moved by Aphrodite, goddess of love. She knew the labyrinth better than the captives did, and she knew its true weapon was not claws. Its true weapon was confusion, and this is the point where the myth becomes brilliant instead of merely brutal. Ariadne went secretly to Daedalus, whose clever mind had created the prison stone by stone. From the old inventor came an answer so small it almost sounded like a joke. The answer was a simple ball of thread, small enough to fit in a hand and powerful enough to defeat a maze. Ariadne met Theseus in secret and placed two things in his hands, a sword for the beast and thread for the maze. Tie one end at the entrance, she told him, and let the string unwind behind you as you descend. If he survived the Minotaur, that thin line would guide him back through the turning dark to daylight. But Ariadne asked for something in return. "Take me from Crete," she said, "and make me your wife." Theseus promised he would, and with that promise the doors of the legend began to open. Night fell over Knossos, the royal center of Crete, and the mouth of the labyrinth yawned beneath the palace. The Athenian youths were driven inside, torches shook, the doors thundered shut behind them. Theseus tied Ariadne's thread at the entrance, and began walking deeper, while the string whispered over stone. Corridor followed corridor, each one colder, narrower, and more alike than the last, until direction itself began to dissolve. The air grew stale, the torch trembled. Somewhere ahead came the scrape of hooves across rock. This is the moment every retelling races toward, because now the myth narrows to man, monster, and darkness. At the center stood the Minotaur, enormous and furious, the buried secret of a kingdom suddenly brought to life. He charged with the force of a wild bull, yet there was something almost human in his trapped rage. Theseus did not flee. He planted himself in the dark and met the creature head-on. Some ancient versions say he used Ariadne's sword. Others say he relied on his hands and sheer resolve. Either way, the old storytellers keep the struggle swift, as though destiny had been waiting years for a single minute. Theseus dodged the charge, struck at the right moment, held fast, and finally brought the monster down. No crowd cheered that victory. No herald proclaimed it. Only torch smoke and hard breathing filled the chamber. The Minotaur was dead, but the labyrinth was still alive around him, and a maze does not reward bravery. So Theseus turned from the fallen beast and searched for the one thing, stronger than panic, Ariadne's thread. He followed the line back through the coils of stone, leading the survivors behind him like dawn through winter. They ran for the harbor, took Ariadne aboard, and pushed their ship into the dark before Crete could answer. Some versions add that they damaged Cretan ships as they fled, leaving Minos raging on the shore at sunrise. Monster dead, daughter gone, tribute escaped, pride shattered, the king watched his victory unravel all at once. You might expect the sea voyage home to feel like release, but Greek myths seldom release anyone so easily. The ship stopped at Naxos, an island in the Aegean, and there the story breaks into one of its saddest turns. In the best-known telling, Theseus left Ariadne sleeping on the shore and sailed away without her. Why he did it has never been settled, which is part of why the scene still aches. Some say he was faithless. Others say Dionysus, god of wine and divine ecstasy, claimed Ariadne as his bride. Whatever the reason, she woke to empty surf, abandoned between one life behind her and another not yet revealed. And if that were not enough, the myth still carried one final cruelty across the water toward Athens. Theseus returned in triumph, but triumph can blur memory, and he forgot the promise made to his father. In the rush of survival and return, he forgot to change the black sails to white. On the cliffs above Athens, old Aegeus scanned the horizon for the only ship that mattered in the world. When he saw black sails approaching, he believed his son had died in the Labyrinth of Crete. In grief, Aegeus threw himself into the sea below, and the waters thereafter bore his name, the Aegean. So Theseus reached home alive and victorious, only to find mourning waiting where celebration should have stood. He had slain the Minotaur and ended the tribute, yet he could not escape the cost of the path. That is why this story lasts, because it understands that beating the monster is not the same as leaving unbroken. Minos tried to hide his shame underground, but hidden things do not stay quiet, simply because stone closes over them. The Minotaur became more than a creature. He became a symbol of fear, secrecy, and consequences no kingdom can bury. The labyrinth became more than architecture. It became a picture of confusion, guilt, and the winding corridors of the mind. And Ariadne's thread became the myth's quiet answer, suggesting that wisdom can save us where force alone fails. Ariadne remains unforgettable because without her, there is no escape, no triumph, and perhaps no legend worth retelling. If you love stories like this, there are more waiting just beyond the firelight, from Greek islands to Norse storm seas. If that's your kind of legend, stay with Rune Legends for the next journey into the old world. Because somewhere, in another hall of stone and shadow, a different myth is already breathing for you.